Aye. Avast there, ye walking on the sand. I be addressing you, mate, no other. I see that you've been scouring about for a tale or two about salty old pirates, if I'm not mistaken. Well, the powers that be have guided you well, for you've come to the proper place. The blue waters of the Caribbean abound with a rich history of brigands and scoundrels so scurvy and mutinous, they've become quite synonymous throughout the passing years. Why, it be so synonymous, in fact, that some of these piratical elements still exist to these here present times. No doubt your ears have caught the attention about an ancient shipwreck. How 'twas found washed up on shore after one of the most wretched hurricanes the Caribbean's ever known. Every passing day me ears catch the queries of many a passer-by like yourself, asking the exact same questions. What poor hulk lay smashed on the cruel rocks, pounded by the angry sea? Who knows the gallant efforts of the wretched crew to save the ship? Well, lean in close, lad, for I wish to trust you with a secret most unusual. I knows about that galleon, 'cause I were there. Ah, so you haven't run off like all the other lubbers, eh? Well then, how astute of you. So do stay a while, and take heed, whilst I tell you the gruesome details of their misfortune, and the treacherous acts what did them in. A dead man's tale of dastardly deeds. Once I be through, it is within me old heart that you may be getting what your own curious heart desires. A good pirate story. Trust me, I told this tale afore, and now I be telling it again. First I be telling you about that ship. 'Twas the Wicked Wench, bound for the Spanish Main. Oh, not only was she a mighty galleon in size, but mighty in strength as well. Whenever the brig wasn't used for any of our backstabbing dogs as prisoners, they'd be used to store our wealthy spoils, enough treasure aboard to buy out the entirety of the governor's mansion in Port Royal. Now I'd be telling you about the man behind the ship's wheel. 'Twas none other than Captain Nathaniel Freeze, a man who would even make Blackbeard jealous from the fears he instilled within the hearts of the innocent. He was known to have many a social connection, which in turn allowed him to claim more riches for our scurvy benefits. Gold and silver, satin and lace. Simple trinkets for the captain's pleasure. Little mementos, you might say. Reminders of his social contacts. Deceitful, the captain, but cultured nonetheless. I myself used to be part of the wicked captain's crew of black-hearted sea dogs. Together we made ourselves a particularly exciting livelihood from plundering other ships and seaports what stood in our path. Your years of living really should have begun around the 1800s. The golden age of piracy. Them were happy times spent by us carefree seamen. Starved we was for the rather juicy taste of many a bottle of rum glistening down our gizzards. Not to mention the sweet sound of a wench's laugh. A willing the lassies was, too, to pay well for a winsome smile and something what you might call the soft craze. Any gold, silver, or diamonds we claimed would be sold for all these pleasures in return. Aye, what times they used to be. Both pleasurable and dangerous. You see, lad, many a moon had risen and fallen whilst we ran amok amongst many a village, taking what we could while giving nothing back. There'd be many a reason that kept us going on and on, pillaging and plundering and such. Mostly the fear of the many fates that would happen if we were captured by any scum or higher authority, or especially if Captain Freeze be angry. The captain ran the Wicked Wench as a tight ship indeed, being sure that there'd be no lollygagging about. Anything against that golden rule would result in becoming food for the sharks what lurked underneath the briny deep. Everything, however, does not last forever. Because of our bloody reputation as a band of ne'er-do-wells, the authorities were starting to close in on us with their own sailing vessels of gunfire and war. We became often washed with fears of death upon our roguish minds, tormented with feverish visions of being strung by our necks in front of the eyes of many a pompous dog. Having been constantly chased by the king's soldiers and sailors would drive us to make a ship land base of the secret sort, the likes of which have never been near our sights for as long as we've been sailing across the sea. Add to that, many a superstitious word travels round the seven seas and beyond, tales of many a peculiar and horrifying being what roams upon uncharted shores. One such tale of bewitched accounts be quite mystifying and bone-chilling. As ye and I be knowing already, the Caribbean abounds with gales and hurricanes. According to the legend we were told, and I do not know if this still be true today, a ghost ship is set to sail those waters with a skeletal helmsman forever lashed to her cursed wheel. 'Tis said that she can be seen sometimes in the light of flashing lightning, when the wind is screaming like the devil himself be after Davy Jones. Tell me, what kind of shelter ashore would the boys what slit throats for pieces of eight be likely to find? The entire crew, including the captain and myself, were growing rather desperate. A peaceful and quiet sunset it was when we began to see a cluster of dark clouds beyond the sea's horizon. Captain Freeze barked at his men to make haste by unfurling the sails and taking our posts for the incoming squalls. Convinced we was that this might be a mighty precarious storm a-brewing. 'Twas Mr. Coot, however, that had his eyes set on the island before any of us. "Land ho!" he be crying out. "Off the port side, mates!" A small flash of lightning illuminated the front of what looked like a mountain at first glance. As it be turning out, 'twas an enormous grotto, the entrance facing out right in front of our ship, not too far away. Now the captain, he knew better than us the many troubles we be faced with at the time. He weren't the peaceful negotiation sort with the landlubbers of higher authority, what him being wanted all along the Caribbean coast as a consequence. And besides, it almost seemed like the sunset was being erased completely by the inky darkness of night, without stars to boot. If it weren't the law on our backs, it be the treacherous weather, and a bewitched storm he was told about by the ghost-loving folk be the last thing he wanted to worry about. So it was that Captain Freeze, being the cleverest devil he was, decided this be our hiding place for any future endeavors. We dropped the Wicked Wench's anchor about a good few yards from the mouth of the grotto, and took our longboats to row the rest of the way. And we be glad we did, mate, for the sky began to blacken as winds came from the clouds in common direction towards our magnificent ship. Thinking back, I could have sworn I saw another ship in that stormy horizon. Well, once we settled inside the grotto, we wasted no time in camping out. Much to our surprise, we discovered an assortment of large wooden planks, most likely the remains of a shipwreck what came before us. As if that weren't enough, our first mate, old Bill, came across a magnificent sight while stumbling through the cavernous walls of the grotto. An honest-to-God treasure trove, practically filled to the brim with coins, chests, necklaces, statuettes, the like. Pretty baubles, thought we, and a king's ransom in gold. All waiting for us merry blighters to claim for ourselves. Precious metals such as these be mighty hypnotizing to the eyes of sea dogs such as us. It'd be a fool's errand to drag it all the way back to the Wicked Wench and practically weigh her hull with a force so heavy it'll pull her down to the depths. The way we saw it, the glimmering heap simply had to be kept in its proper, gloriously mountainous state. A select few, including old Bill himself, volunteered to keep an eye on the treasure's hiding place, whilst the rest of us divvied a plan to comfortably settle throughout the rest of the cavernous grotto. Stone-cold walls and rough sandy shores does not a cozy refuge make, so in order for us to concoct a more efficient living quarters, we worked with what we had available. We took these wooden planks and crafted an entire tavern with bottles upon bottles of rum. Home away from home it was, the finest center of forbidden fruits any of us scoundrels would consume. Alcohol, mostly. Further satisfied we was by our faithful captain's very own captain's quarters. Oh, you've been hearing me right, mate. He set up his own cabin with a cave. A dandy bed of lace trimmings and all. Wondering ye be how we came about to create a room fit for a king in a cave? Well, you see, mate, I be telling ye, as much as the captain was cultured, he also be accustomed to conflicts. If these caverns were going to be our new home, he be needing a private chamber. Con the governor of Jamaica he did. Like a ruddy member of parliament. And sweet-talk that wretched soul into believing he be a poor old blind beggar looking for a place to stay in his own mansion. After the captain settled in his freshly made bed, the crew and I did the rest, with our ransacking skills and all. It was like the room never existed, let alone the furniture, and it only took a whole day to move it from the Wicked Wench's cabin in the grotto. The skull and crossbones on the bed's heading was the captain's idea for a finishing touch, as it were. It be true, the cove was a mite untidy when we first took up residence, but if there be one thing that made it a perfect hideaway, it be weather tight, a proper quarters for us daring seafaring men, enjoying our aforementioned pleasures ashorely. Oh, how the walls of that deserted berth once echoed with the sounds of coarse laughter and bonny songs. No sailor would get a wink of sleep with all the revelry that went on. I even recall our beloved captain hollering out, "Drink up, me hearties, and may the bottle never run dry." Safe and sound we was, from not only the brewing weather and soldiers of war, but the devil himself. But it's like I told you before, lad. Nothing lasts forever. During our night of gallivanting, I admittedly had a little too much alcohol in me belly, and I collapsed on the ground in a bout of drunkenness. Now, me face was laying down, facing toward the entrance of the cave, and me good eye caught a glimpse of the storm outside. What I saw next could have either been a vision of alcoholic haze, or perhaps a vision of fate. I swear I thought I saw that ship again. Not ours, mate, the other one. The one with the tattered sails. The one with what looked like a rather scrawny helmsman at her wheel. Now, the last thing I recall hearing before I dazed were the chilling winds of the cave. It almost sounded like they'd be speaking to me with words. Unfriendly words. Morning came, and I be greeted with silence. Deathly still silence. It did not last long, however, for I was fully awakened by screaming and bouts of cries coming from a few other select rogues of the crew. We awoke to a gruesome sight. What was Captain Nathaniel Freeze and his band of rapscallions the night before now be rotting bodies the next morning. They were all motionless, gaunt, staring at nothing in particular, with barely any flesh left on their bones. They were all sent to Davy Jones's locker, and all without even leaving the cave. Corpses of our fellow mates were drunk in rum. We saw one bottle still pouring down Mr. Coote's rotten-out gullet. Our trusted Captain Freeze himself was in his bed, spying on a map of Hispaniola with his magnifying glass focusing on his empty eye socket. And past that, the treasure was still intact. Every coin, every chest, every statuette, everything was still there, unchanged, with one exception. Sitting atop the pile of blood money was the withering body of old Bill. A wide, permanent grin slathered across his face while admiring a necklace gently swinging from his now bony fingers. How could a nightmare like this be so? It would have made no sense it'd be mermaids. For how would they devour a sailor head to toe without leaving his clothes and hats and such clinging onto his body? And that ideology be the same reason as to why it weren't piranhas what gave these criminal lives a sudden climax. So, what be the reason as to why they was frozen in time like that? And why was it that we were the only lot still alive? It was that moment, and that moment alone, when it be dawning on us. You see, another superstition we was told about was the cursed treasure of Cortez. How the heathen gods placed a terrible curse upon each piece of gold and silver in these cavernous regions, and how said cavernous regions be called Dead Man's Cove. It be the same treasure we found when we marked our territory there. And cursed it was, cursed by the black-hearted rogues what left it. That's why it was simply there when we arrived. we dropped anchor in the wrong shore. Now, as to why me and a few others were still alive, I don't believe we had any gold with us. Not a single shed in our grubby hands or patched pockets. I suppose this be because our bellies was feeling like galleons with loads of food and rum in their holds the night afore. Us not even thinking to tamper with the riches, but of course, this is me thinking about it now, and us exploring this living nightmare any further did not matter at the time. Our only concern was getting the devil out of there. We made haste immediately to our longboats docked within the shores of the grotto. After tossing a decaying body of another doomed sailor, we took one to row back out the way we came. As we frantically stroked the rows throughout the watery passageways, 3 more corpses of former cutthroats yielded our attention. One was leaning against a wall of the cave, a sword shoved clean through his liver. Another be laying down belly first in the sand with another sword run through his back, and the last body was simply sitting on shore, clutching onto one of the treasure chests, ironically empty of any gold. Now we assume that a sword act of mutiny took place between the 3, most likely a squabble about who be getting a fair share of the chest, before the blades flung and cleaved. Just imagine. Brave seamen they was. Helped bury the gold they did, then silenced forever. You might say that 2 of them got the worst of it, but given that the 3rd scoundrel be affected to the black magic before he ever got out, we'd be knowing better, eh? Sure enough, we made it back to the Wicked Wench in one piece. Now without a captain to steer her away from the haunted shore, it'd be up to us to take this hull back, riches or no. 'Twasn't long, however, when Poseidon worked his own power on the clouds above to create a maelstrom. The rain came falling hard, while bolts of lightning streaked across the heavens, accompanied by deafening claps of thunder. Waves rolled over the horizon, smacking our hull mighty hard. The sails started to tear apart and the rigging be collapsing around us. Try as we might, the good ship Wicked Wench wasn't going to be sailing in the high seas much longer. 'Twas then we were convinced by that point in time this weren't just any treacherous day for a pirate. What with the cursed gold and brewing storms, it'd be a pirate's judgment day. That was the very bewitching moment when that ship, that damned, cursed ghost ship, came back to haunt the ocean waves once more. With every flash of lightning, I could see every detail of the wretched hull. Every beaten plank, every broken rope, every gaping hole on the side, even the tattered sail. And even him. I cried to my remaining crew members, but for one reason or another, they weren't there anymore. They were completely disappeared. No man ever vanished to below deck unless he be greeted by a bottle or a wench, neither of which proved to be the best company at that moment in time. I took notice that with each lightning flash, the ship seemed to come closer and closer to ours, at an alarmingly fast rate at that. The helmsman's eyes were staring straight and true through me very soul, with each closing distance between our ship and his. As soon as he and I were close enough for us to be face to skull, he slowly raised his bony hand upward, pointing his index finger right in me face. His eyes were burning, brighter than ever, turning to roaring flames, and the last thing I saw with me own 2 eyes before one last strike of a lightning bolt, allowing the darkness and silence to embrace me sight and sound, was when he opened his hinged jaw, smoke emitting from his non-existent gizzard. and greeted me with a spine-chilling sound of an unearthly scream. The next thing I be remembering is finding myself being blinded by the light of the sun on the shore of some deserted isle in the middle of the sea. Various pieces of what used to be the Wicked Wench surrounded me. Large and small planks of wood half buried in the sand. The worst part of it all, of course, was that I was alone. I yelled as loud as me vocal cords could manage to find me lost mates, but a sound there was none, outside of the ocean waves and squawking seagulls. Eventually I was found by a collective crew of British type, 2 of whom dragged me from the shore to the brig of their galleon. I suppose word of salty old pirates travels round the sea. But it be a good thing they did, mate, for I wanted them to take me down to the brig. I cared not for how long I was to be placed behind rusty bars, or how long me spine would elongate on the rack, torture me till I give me last breath, or even leave me to die on me own accord if they must. Any fate I would deserve from here on in would be a more favorable punishment than the one I almost suffered. You see, mate, whoever be watching over that gold still be mighty angry. Some say that every single last piece has been in fact recovered in due time, what with the wax museum being built and all. But who's to say exactly? Aye. Captain Nathaniel Freeze and his bilge rats, including myself, feasted our greedy eyes on the treasure, and we knew too much after that. We've seen the cursed treasure. We knew where it be hidden. And they still be rotting away in there. Why, they're practically none but bones by now, I figure. Still claimed by the bewitched power of Dead Man's Cove. I bet you the souls of me former crew, if not the heathen gods themselves, be still looking for any coins what they think be missing from their tomb. As for the Wicked Wench, or what used to be such, one can only guess that the ghost ship needn't worry to be lonely anymore. There might even be a whole fleet out there for all we know. So, no fear have ye of evil curses, says you. Aye. Properly warned you be, says I. Who knows when that evil curse would strike the greedy beholders of that bewitched treasure again. Now that I be hearing of laddies the likes of you trying to scour for such a cursed place, mark well me words. And these be the last friendly words you'll hear. You'd be better off not going there. There be no X's about that spot, and even if there were, you'll only find torment and suffering. Once you sail in, it'd be too late to alter course. You may not survive to pass that way again. Davy Jones always be waiting for them what don't obey. What be your sudden shivering about? You did come here to hear a tale about salty old pirates after all, haven't you? I gave you what you've been asking for, and that be a good pirate story. So it seems dead men do tell tales, don't they?